Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game SO. Today I got a fun and exciting episode for you guys this evening because we're going to be playing the recent Kid Icarus port from bringing the game from the NES to the Super Nintendo with MSU1 support and backgrounds from the 3DS version. And if you're not familiar with the name, he's been making some absolutely awesome modifications to games, porting NES titles over to Super Nintendo with a ton of different enhancements, and every single one of them is a 10 out of 10 effort. So today we're going to take a look at Kid Icarus and all of the changes. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, you got a Patreon link down below as well. But pretty much everyone who's played Kid Icarus at least once in their life. It's an absolute NES classic, but what you're seeing in front of you here just looks completely different in the background aspect. These are all of the backgrounds from the eShop release on the 3DS brought over to the game and then ported over to Super Nintendo. So you're going to get all of the Super Nintendo colorways and all of the enhanced features of the Super Nintendo within the game. And I would say that even the screen scrolling feels a little bit smoother here on Super Nintendo than it ever did on NES, but maybe that's just my imagination being so impressed by this actual port. And that's what Infidelity's been up to for like the last couple of years now, bringing NES titles to Super Nintendo, increasing their performance, giving them new graphics, giving them MSU1 sound support so you get a completely different soundtrack out of them, and just basically taking games that are definitely aged now and giving them a little bit of new life, because obviously the gameplay is not going to change in any way, shape, or form here. This is going to be the Kid Icarus you know, love, and remember, but it's just going to be a more modern version of the game. I want to give you the sound sample. Trust me, the music in this with the MSU1 sound support is absolutely outstanding. And if you do want to play this today, you can do it multiple ways. MiSTer FPGA, you can use real hardware with the light flash card if you have that MSU1 support built into it, or you can do it via software emulation as well. So this should work on pretty much anything you want. The only wrong way to play the game is to not play it at all. And that definitely is awesome. Additionally, there is a randomizer in the game as well, so you can kind of play around with the game's overall structure and just get a new experience out of the title, and that's always going to be fun as well. And that's what these ports are basically doing. They're just giving classic games a new lease on life, and if you didn't grow up in the NES era, you might think that Kid Icarus on NES looks a little bit dated and antiquated, and that is because it was one of the earlier titles on the system, so it doesn't have the same graphical prowess as something like Super Mario 3 would towards the end of the NES life cycle. So being able to experience a game like this is a ton of fun, and again, if it's the first time you've ever actually played the game, it's going to just be a fundamentally better version. It is not the original. It is definitely changing a lot of things, but honestly, every single change here I think is for the better. Everything is just so much more colorful, more vibrant, and it is fun to have a background, because in the NES version of the game, if you're not familiar with it, the entire background of the screen would just be black at this moment in time. So you'd have the sprites on screen, but there really wouldn't be any background layer whatsoever. And you're also going to get two different color palettes, which I'll show you in just a moment. But again, the amount of options here, you can tell Infidelity loved Kid Icarus and really wanted to bring it to a new audience. And I will say right now, these Reapers definitely the bane of any Kid Icarus player's existence, but even their kind of horror soundtrack that comes up when they actually spot you is completely different in this title, and it is so much better in my opinion. The original one could be a tiny bit grating as far as what the NES could reproduce sound-wise, but it definitely is a nostalgic sound, even if it does tell you that you're about ready to die. And honestly, this game is still as hard as it ever was. You'll see here, I just needed one good jump to be able to get to the next level, and I ended up dying at the last second. And that is Kid Icarus to a nutshell. It is going to challenge you. It is not an easy game, but that challenge and fun factor is so much about what this title really is. And I remember playing this for the first time back in the day, I think at a friend's house in school, absolutely falling in love with it. It's not like we get a ton of games in this franchise anymore. We got the entry on the 3DS, and that was a fun time, but it was definitely a very difficult game to control. It was a hand cramper, so I would say that the original is still the best game in the series, and I feel like Nintendo really is due up for giving us another game like this. I'd love to see a Kid Icarus game kind of with that Space Harrier or Planet Harrier vibe going on whatever the next Switch 2 is going to be. But you tell me down below, if you're going to get a new Kid Icarus game, what genre would you want it in? I would be curious. But again, one of the big takeaways of this conversion is the fact that it has that MSU1 support for sound. So go ahead and listen to the soundtrack for like 45 seconds or so. It's going to sound both infinitely familiar as well as completely new. So enjoy. I mean, that's the Kid Icarus soundtrack, and it's a completely different soundtrack all at the same time, and I absolutely love the music coming out of this MSU1 port, of all the music added to the games, of all the different games Infidelity is ported over to Super Nintendo. I think the Kid Icarus soundtrack is the most effective in its new music, and I will give you a second sound sample in just a little bit of some different music in the game. But again, this just feels like a fresh version of a title that you've probably played before, and getting the backgrounds definitely makes it that much better. Now, of course, there is a 3DS port of this game, so you can definitely play it there, but for my money, I think playing it on real Super Nintendo hardware or MiSTer FPGA is just a little bit more fun of an experience. I think this is something that looks incredible when you scale it up to your television in the living room. It is such a fun look, and again, you do get different color profiles as well. You'll see here Palette NES or the FCEUX. You can change back and forth. I stuck with the NES original here, but it gives you those options. You can also turn on and off the backgrounds and on and off the MSU1 sound. So if you want the original soundtrack, but you want the backgrounds, you can 100% absolutely do that. Infidelity is really giving you the choice as to how you want to play Kid Icarus, and again, you can just basically turn everything off, including the backgrounds, and just play this on your Super Nintendo like it was an NES game. And I think that is nice. He hasn't made the decision for you how to play the game. He just decided to give you all of the options for you to kind of craft your own new Kid Icarus experience, and that's always fun when the developer doesn't just lock you out of the original. They give you the option to play however you want. But again, one more sound sample, because the Reaper sound effect always scared the hell out of me as a kid, and it's in this game, but it sounds slightly different. So enjoy. I mean, that is just a completely new version of a classic track, and I do love just how orchestral it really does sound, and the MSU1 support, again, with these games is just spectacular. If you're not aware what MSU1 is, it's basically an imaginary enhancement chip that people developed some years ago to give the Super Nintendo additional features that it never had before, and it is something that never really existed back in the Super Nintendo's lifespan. It's wholly a fan creation, and it does such a good job of expanding these games. You can do MSU1 sound support where you have a soundtrack like that, or other games can do full motion video that never were able to before. So it really is a very versatile enhancement that people have had a lot of fun with just playing around on the Super Nintendo side. And the best part is it works on flash cards so long as your flash card supports it. It works on MiSTer FPGA, and it works on software emulation as well. So that is always a fun time. But as we move a little bit further into the game, I just love the color profile of this title, and I've just always loved Kid Icarus, so getting a new version of the game to play is always an exciting time, and I will leave a link to Infidelity's Twitter down below, because he's done a bunch of these ports to Super Nintendo, is going to be continuing to do so you can definitely see his progress there, and sometimes even ask people what they might want to see next. So you tell me in the comments if there was going to be an NES to Super Nintendo port of a game, you could just wave your magic wand and make it happen. Which one would you pick? I'm sure there's going to be a lot of different choices out there for sure, but Kid Icarus is one of those classic NES games. Everyone has at least played it, most people do love it, and it's one of those franchises that Nintendo seems to forget for the most part in the last couple of years even exists. So getting something like this is just a fun time, because it's not like Nintendo's bringing us any new Kid Icarus lately. Hopefully they do in the future, but you never know what Nintendo's up to next, probably just trying to figure out who to sue next. But all jokes aside, I just love this stuff. The new backgrounds are a 10 out of 10. The music's absolutely spectacular. Being able to play on Super Nintendo is a fun time, and giving the option of having different color profiles and palettes on the characters is good as well. There really isn't anything that this port does that I don't like whatsoever. You even have that randomizer mode again, so you can kind of play the game in a completely new manner. So hopefully Infidelity just keeps up with all of these different ports and ROM hacks. I love seeing them, but again, if you haven't played Kid Icarus before, be prepared to die more than once. This game is absolutely brutal. It is going to take everything you have to try to see the ending of it in the classic NES way possible. And the best part is, one more time, it works on anything you throw at it. So definitely give this one a shot. Check out Infidelity's Twitter, see what other ports he's done to Super Nintendo, because there's a metric crap ton of them out there, and they're all gold. We're short of that, we're done, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.